I think it's important to know exactly who you are, and that's an ongoing journey. Whenever I was in Australia, I worked with a couple of coaches who we did a lot of like deep work trying to find out because I was whenever I went to Australia, I was at a crossroad in my life. I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue doing music because I felt like I just was losing my love for it, losing my passion for it. And I worked with a couple of coaches who really helped kind of dive deep into who I was and what I wanted in from life, essentially. And that
Welcome to the Alchemy Project podcast. This is episode 2. I'm John Peters, and this is where we explore the space where work and life meet. In this episode, I have the wonderful opportunity to interview Sam Horton, and he's going to share with us his journey, and we'll get an opportunity to chat about how he keeps his own work-life balance. Okay, so welcome, Sam. Glad to have you here on the podcast today. And we can have a discussion about your path, your journey to where you are today. And we'll gain some insights and understanding of just how you're dealing with balancing your entrepreneurial ventures and your life, and hope this benefits folks. So let folks know who you are and what you're up to today and kind of what your journey was getting there.
Yeah, so I'm Sam. I was been based in the UK most of my life. Spent some time out in Australia and Southeast Asia for a while as well, but now I'm back in the UK. I have a community on the school platform, which I've fairly recently set up called Soundcraft Academy. Now, I've always been into music, and I've always been a musician professionally, semi-professionally for the last 18 years, pretty much. Started out just in bands and then eventually went solo, doing my own thing for a long time. Was writing a lot of original music and releasing that. Ended up playing some pretty good festivals in the UK, Isle of Wight Festival, Camp Festival, and then I now I've wanted to set up this community where I actually help other people do just that. Well, whether they want to just learn the guitar and do it as a hobby, or the great thing about the community is I'm there to answer any questions. So however far they want to take it, I can kind of help them with that journey and answer any questions and give any advice they may have. So yeah, maybe they want to learn guitar, or maybe they want to get into a band, maybe they want to be a covers musician and make a little bit of extra money on the side, or just go full time on the local pub circuit. I help people, get booked for gigs and just improve in the craft of music. That's why it's called Soundcraft Academy. So this is my most recent musical venture. Outside of music, I'm involved. I run. I freelance in digital marketing as well. I've been doing that. So I've had this kind of freelance agency for about started it about 5 years ago, and I help e-commerce businesses scale using various marketing platforms. I'm very interested in personal branding as well and graphic design. So I help people do that alongside my music, and they kind of complement each other a lot as well, because I think no matter what business you're in, personal branding and marketing is half of the role. It's half of what you're doing. If you can be the best at what you do, but if you don't know how to market it, you're not going to be able to. No one's going to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a little overview about what I'm doing right now and how I got up to this point.
That's a really good point about the marketing, because one of the things that kind of shocked and flummoxed me was, as a therapist, basically I just exist and clients show up. So
Right.
there's a pervasive demand for therapy, and there are all these conduits, like people kind of
Yeah.
expect them to exist, and insurance companies have a list of who's paneled, and so someone with insurance coverage just calls up a number and they get a list of people and they show up.
Yeah.
In 20 years, in the first 20 years of being a therapist, I literally spent $400 on advertising in 20 years. And I didn't even need to do that. It was just an experiment to see if I could influence who was showing up in my practice.
Yeah.
But then I started doing my entrepreneurial stuff. And
Yeah.
like you say, you really have to figure out, how do I represent myself? Like, what is my branding? Because regardless of what you're doing with like ads, your branding is how people make sense of who you are and
Yeah.
what you're doing and whether they're going to
Yeah.
connect with you. And it's, I'm still learning a lot about it today, but man, I just thought, oh, I just have to like tell people, here's my offer,
Mm.
and they'll show up like my clients did. But this is not how it works, right?
No,
um,
definitely not. I mean, in the health space, my sister is an occupational therapist as well,
mhm,
and I know it's slightly different to what you do, but it's in that kind of health space,
mhm,
and yeah, there's the demand is just there. I think aging population, there's always going to be just a demand. There's not really much need for her to market. However, if she did open up a practice, it would need some marketing as well. So yeah, there's definitely whenever the demand is that high,
mhm.
there's less of a need to run like paid ads or things like that. However, having a presence on social media and being able to brand that properly is, I think it's very important as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of depends a little bit on how selective your clients, if like for me, I do general outpatient therapy, and that means young, old, male, female,
Yeah,
depressed, anxious, grief, change of life problems. And so
yeah,
if I, for example, only did grief,
hmm,
then I would be burdened to try to position myself much more
yeah,
carefully in the market.
yeah.
So,
So
so are
is
you still
your
doing the consulting for the marketing stuff too?
Yeah, yeah, I still do that. Yeah, I'm a lot more selective of the clients I work with now.
Mhm.
I try to be as involved in the design music niche as possible. I'm working with a really great graphic designer at the moment who does all of the merchandise for like Sabrina Carpenter, Dua Lipa, some of the biggest brands in the world, and he does their design work, and he also has an e-commerce store as well. So I help him take care of that. So for me, that's like an ideal client because it ties into music as well. So the more the more niche that I found that that's my niche pretty much. So, and that's the niche I want to continue working with. In the past, I've kind of been a lot more broad, working with sort of home improvement companies and various other businesses, and it's great. I can help them, but it's not as aligned with who I am and the niche I kind of want to go into. So, I tend to be a lot
Mhm.
more selective of who I work with these days.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So with the Soundcraft Academy, you and I connected on the school platform,
yeah,
and that's it's a new platform and forum for connecting with clients and
yeah,
doing a new thing. But before you got on school, were
yeah.
you crafting that community in a way off of school, or were you mostly working with people just individually, and you were the nexus of any connections that existed?
Well, because I have a music YouTube channel, and every now and then I'd be playing. For example, I play gigs still quite regularly now locally, and every now and then someone will ask me like, "Oh, I'd love to. I've been playing, or I want to learn how to play guitar, or I've been playing guitar for years. How do you get booked for gigs?" And this is something that I went through a lot of trial and error to figure this out myself. So of how to actually, because the thing is with music is it starts off as a passion, and then trying to figure out how to monetize it is quite often the challenge. And I went through so much trial and error of how to actually earn a decent income from music alone. And I feel like I can really help someone do that if they want to actually learn, if they want to do music. So that's why I started off making guitar course, and I was going to use a platform called Teachable to sell that.
Hmm.
I looked at various platforms like Patreon, and then I was going to go with Teachable, and then I discovered School, and what I realized was it's the community aspect of School is really valuable because you're not just selling a course and then leaving them to it. You can actually get them into your community. They can do the course, yet they're still there. You're there in the community to answer any questions, and then any other people who have done the course as well can help answer questions as well.
Hmm.
So that's why I chose School over the other platforms as well.
Yeah. I was on Teachable for a few years, uh, kind of when it first launched, because one of my areas of practice was I used to work with high conflict divorce situations, mostly
Yeah,
parents separated.
yeah,
And I did that for a while. And then eventually I wrote a couple books on the topic. And then I launched a course. I had this online course that people could take.
yeah.
But, but yeah, later, I mean, what led me to School was that that course wasn't doing well. I wasn't making a lot of money on it. I spent a lot of energy trying to market it and
Yeah.
it just wasn't being real successful. But um, in my research about trying to market courses, really over the past 2.5 years, there was just so much more discussion about the evolution of online education monetization.
Hmm.
And so many people were saying, the value is in the access to the person and also the community. Um, People want the information. People want, good guidance to acquire a skill or some knowledge. But really, a lot of people are saying. I mean, there's controversy, of course, but there are a lot of people who are saying, like the old school online courses are dead. Like they're not viable because too many people jumped into that space, and then now with AI,
Hmm.
you really, unless you've got some posture in your niche that's extremely high,
Yeah.
I don't think that online courses are the thing that, and plus, I mean, it's just really cool to foster community. It's a new type of service. It's a new relationship that you can have with people and that they can have with each other. I tried, I was on Kajabi too for online courses, and a lot of people do communities on there, but personally, I think School is set up a bit better than Kajabi was.
Definitely, 100%. Yeah, and a lot of people who I respect as uh, who have great personal brands, good marketers, started using School. So that's another reason why I decided to look at it because um, there is Richard Cooper from Entrepreneurs in Cars. He has his School of Unplugging community on there. There's just countless. Tom Buelo, I think his name is. He has a very big podcast. He's just put his new course on School. So I think this year School is just going to continue to grow.
Hmm. Yeah. And for
Personal
me,
branding, because personal brand is something that AI can never, and human relationships is something AI can never replace.
yeah. And for me, that one of the biggest values of School is the actual schooligans, the community of people doing
Yeah,
school. That's
yeah,
something that I didn't get on Teachable. I didn't get on Kajabi.
yeah,
You can kind of try to piece it together yourself in the
yeah,
connections that you make when you're doing your own kind of growth as an entrepreneur.
yeah.
But it's a real amazing resource because it's like having a cloud of consultants who
Hmm.
are hanging out there ready to give you some really great feedback. So I,
Definitely.
I've learned so much from all the people who are in there posting and responding to posts and things like that.
Definitely. Yeah, it's like having a having mentors just at your fingertips, isn't it? Any question
Hmm.
you have about anything, uh, traffic, course, building community, it's just there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, someone was pointing out in a podcast that somebody posted on there yesterday that school, you know, with CH school, like when you were K through 12, um, it was not collaborative. People weren't in there interested in holding each other up.
Yeah,
And school with a K,
yeah,
people are genuinely interested in building each other up. And even like last week, there were two guys who gave me some really rich feedback and help and like made some looms for me. And I'm not in their niche, they weren't pitching me. They were
nice.
just jumping in and giving me some really good advice to help
Great.
me out. And
It's great.
it's amazing. Yeah. I really love the resource.
Yeah, yeah, it's perfect.
So for you, the musician part, I can relate to that because what I didn't tell you before is like I was a musician from being from a kid, and for
Nice.
30 years I played with a lot of singer songwriters and was in some
Yeah,
original groups.
yeah,
And then right before COVID hit, I had retired and kind of worked my career to be a DJ, and then COVID hit and blew DJ gigs out of the water. It blew all gigs out of the
yeah,
water.
yeah.
But and then these days I do some ambient music production. So I've got a couple of YouTube
Nice,
channels where I post ambient
nice.
music. But
It's great.
being a musician,
Yeah,
that's like a training in entrepreneurship, unless you're just the band member who
mm,
merely shows up when they're told to
yeah,
be somewhere and play. But
definitely.
you have to deal with the production of the thing. You have to
Hmm.
try to monetize it, like you say, even to pay for expenses. Even if you're not going to make a living, you got
Hmm.
to try to make beer money and travel money to get to gigs, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you have to manage people and the marketing, building a website, doing your album or music artwork as well, your own photos. Yeah, it's a huge lesson in entrepreneurship. You're right, and that's kind of how I got into marketing because everything I just did with music just naturally lend itself into that as well. I was like, oh, I can just help other people to apply this to their business as well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So, as you know, I'm really interested in how entrepreneurs deal with the stress of being an entrepreneur. So I'd be interested in hearing some of your report on
yeah,
your journey, both as a musician and with your ventures. Like,
yeah.
did you hit any points where like it became enough of an issue
Mm.
that it was something you had to do something about? Because of course there's general stress, and everybody who's got any
Yeah.
sort of venture can say, yeah, there's stress in doing it. But like, like for me, I work full time as a therapist, and my community building is
Mm.
extra. So I don't currently have
Yeah.
the luxury of just fully retiring and doing that full time. And so, I have to think, what are my tasks this week? There's
Yeah.
organizational stuff, and it is possible to get overwhelmed by just having too much to do in a given day or a given week. But I'm just
Yeah.
interested for you. Was there any point at, from the beginning to today, like where you're like, oh, I need to do something for myself and how I'm dealing with this so that it doesn't become a bigger problem?
Yeah. I'm I naturally just am very wired to not stop working. It's sat. I mean, it's. I don't think I ever take a full day off. I'm not the sort of person who just sits and does nothing and just watches movies all day on a Sunday. Always have to be creating something, no matter what that is. Even if it's just researching for a content or something like that. If I don't feel like I'm being productive, I feel guilty and beat myself up because of that. I don't feel like I'm moving forward. And yeah, there's periods where I just feel completely burnt out. Like last night, for example, got back from a gig, didn't get back till 2:30 in the morning. So that obviously just massively messes up your sleep, and it's something that I'm working on. I don't think I have work-life balance nailed at all, to be honest. I think the last year I've really tried to make a conscious effort to prioritize sleep because I just know how important it is, and I'm getting older. Turned 33 last week, so I'm not in my 20s anymore, so got to be more conscious to take care of the health side of things.
Hmm.
So yeah, that is definitely something that I'm working on. Um, Fitness and gym plays a huge part as well. Trying to stay healthy and in shape.
Hmm.
I think that definitely improves my mental health for sure, and just how I feel. So yeah, I would love to get to a point where I can have work life balance, especially when I do eventually have a family. I would love to be able to take weekends off, but right now I'm in just a building season of life, and it means it just requires me to work 7 days a week,
Hmm.
unfortunately. But I enjoy it. Like it doesn't feel like like I don't want to do this. I'm enthusiastic to get the work done. So yeah,
Yeah, I can
I see.
totally relate with the like the. I'm like you. Like I just don't do downtime the same way some people do. So on my weekend, I'm doing research on stuff I'm interested in, and it may not always be stuff that's like about my community or my business. I might get like I do this ambient music, and so I might do some research about how to do certain types of music production, or
Mm-hmm.
I bake bread, so I might go watch 10 YouTube videos on bread recipes and technique, and so yeah, like you. But
You make sourdough.
you know, I I guess in some future part of my life where I am really retired, more retired, I'll do sourdough. But the problem with sourdough is you got to have that starter going, and you got to have a
Oh,
cycle of making bread every so many days and feeding the
really?
starter. My schedule's so full, and my bread making is random, like the day when it's going to work with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I make rustic loaves that look like sourdough, but they're not
Right.
sourdough. So
Right. Oh, so who doesn't love bread?
yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand how people can go like ketogenic or carnivore and just not eat any carbs. I would really struggle with that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, bread.
But
Bread is
one thing you said, Sam, that I find interesting is that you mentioned sleep.
yes.
And I agree. I'm of the opinion that that's one of the core things that all of us have to address. But
Yes.
interestingly, it leads you to the other things, or it can lead you to the other things. So, for example, if you say, I'm aware that I need to generally be getting better sleep, then the next question is, what do you need to do to get better sleep? And
Yes.
so the other parts of your lifestyle, the other choices that you make end up coming into view through this doorway of looking at this one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't drink alcohol really anymore, or I'll have the odd drink here or there, but it will be one, maximum two, and that definitely helps getting better sleep. I think
That's a good point. A
when it,
lot of people don't think that because alcohol is sedating, and they think, well, that'll help me go to sleep better.
yeah,
But drinkers actually sleep worse than non-drinkers. If you
definitely,
look at the data, they've done research on that.
yeah, and caffeine as well. I tried cutting out caffeine. I mean, I drink coffee now, but I've gone through experiments trying to cut that out, and I have found that I sleep better when I don't have caffeine. So now I
Hmm.
try and limit it to after 3 p.m. no caffeine.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing for me is just mentally switching off. So just getting off all the screens. I'm still guilty of it now. I'll be in bed at midnight, 12 o'clock on my phone, just mindlessly scrolling or just messaging people or emailing. So and then it keeps the brain stimulated, and it's not a good habit. But with in this digital world, it's so hard to switch off.
It is hard because the things that we do with our phones generally are we're connecting onto platforms and forums where
Yeah.
there's no natural limit. So like you could get on Facebook and scroll for literally 24 hours straight as long as you could stay awake.
Yeah.
Facebook will never tell you, "Hey, you've done enough, like put the phone down." It doesn't work that way, and it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So I find that's a common thing I find my clients talking about is what do I do with phone usage? Because
Yeah.
when I ask people like how much you doing a day on your phone, a lot of people are their screen time report is like 3+ hours a day. Some of that may be productive stuff, but a lot of it's random scrolling of crap.
Yeah. Yeah. I I think my screen time is way higher than that. It's ridiculous to be honest, because most of my work outside of playing the gigs is just all on a computer. So it's I think sometimes it must be 10 hours or something crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which isn't healthy, that's for sure. But I think that's why eventually it's important to, get systems in place, which means that you don't have to play less. You don't have to do as much screen time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for you, you try to like look for some balance with things that you know would be good, like sleep. You
Yeah.
mentioned exercise too, keeping
Yeah.
alcohol low.
I do jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I've been doing that for, I'm a purple belt. I've been doing that for like 5 years, and that really helps
Mm.
because it's social. It's with a lot of other people, and it's active as well. And it's not just at the gym, just lifting weights. Yeah, so that really helps physically and mentally, getting that kind of exercise in, and that's my way of disconnecting from working, going to
Hmm.
train. Yeah.
Cool. So do you have a schedule with the work that you're doing now? Obviously, gigging is at night,
Yeah.
but your Soundcraft Academy
Yeah.
and your marketing stuff, like what's your
Yeah.
typical schedule in a week?
So my typical schedule is Monday to Friday. I'm helping clients, marketing clients, and I'm also building out my community. That's Monday to Friday. So I'm in the process of editing my first course inside the community. That's actually taken way longer than I thought it would. I thought I could get it done in a couple of weeks, and I was very naive. I'm 2 months in, and I still haven't finished it. It's all filmed. It's just the editing part is just taking forever, and so my priority is getting that live right now.
Hmm.
And then on the weekends, I'm gigging. Most Fridays and Saturdays, I'm gigging, and I'm also making content like this and making content for my own channels as well. So I'm researching, scripting ideas, filming, editing, and then on Sundays, I am doing a lot of outreach to venues, to get bookings for gigs, and yeah, that's pretty much my schedule.
One aspect of stress that I've found in my own journey of trying to be an entrepreneur, and I think this is true of a lot of people, um, is just how much work you have to put in to develop the skill sets necessary to do certain aspects of the business. And obviously, if you were an entrepreneur that was coming in with capital and you could just hire people to do different roles in your
Yeah,
business, that would be a different story. That's not me. I didn't have $1 million or $200,000 where I could make that kind of choice. So you
yeah,
and I, what our resource is time,
hmm
and we want to do as much as we can for free. So,
yeah,
like you, the first online course that I made, it took me a year
really,
to get it to the point where I was going to launch it because it had like 38 components in it. And so I had to film all of that stuff. I had to make handouts and in filming, like I had never produced something like that. So I had to figure out like how the heck do you even hit record in a way that you're going to end up with a video that you actually can edit. And then what is editing? there's then you go down the rabbit hole of watching 100 YouTube videos on video
Yeah.
editing, and um, I found that was challenging because, and like with marketing too, when I thought, well, I should maybe run ads. Well, where do I run them? Do I run them on Meta? Do I run them on Google? Do I
Yeah.
run them in my local newspaper? What is advertising? And so then you end up spending dozens of hours ramping up, that domain of your venture, but that's just
Yeah.
one. Um, so I think that's something that a lot of people don't fully appreciate because they just think, oh, I'll just make an offer and I'll sell it, and there are all these little bits that if they're not in place, the whole thing doesn't work. And if it's you, you've got to figure out how to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I think a simple service or a community is a great way to start. It's a great first business because doesn't require $200,000 to start like a software business would. You can bootstrap it, build it from the ground up, even just use organic content marketing to get leads. And it's very low risk, very low startup cost. So yeah, I believe it's the best business to start in 2025.
Cool. So, what are your goals for this year?
Yeah. My goals this year is get the community really up and running. I want to grow that. I want to help as many people as I can with the community in Soundcraft Academy, reach their music goals, learn how to play the guitar, learn how to actually make music a side hustle or even a full time income from that. And I want to continue to work with marketing clients who are aligned in the music and design niche, and try and have the balance, like you said, prioritize the health and the sleep aspect as well, and yeah, try and make time for the other things that matter as well, friends, family as well, and not just be working all the time because that's not life's for living.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, life, the things that we think are not work
Yeah.
actually do support our work. Um,
Yeah.
I sometimes quibble with people, even though I use this term, but I recently I got into like a debate with some people on LinkedIn about just the fundamental assumptions about work life balance because
Yeah.
it assumes there's work and there's not work,
Yeah.
and we can think of it that way, but um, the things that we think are not work have a huge impact on how we show up and perform when we're doing the thing we call work. And the way we relate to and experience our work often can have a huge impact on the stuff that we call not work. So they're so interrelated. Um, and I think when you take a close look, it often reveals those challenges or the places where you need to change something, or the way that you can more appreciate those connections. Like you said, sleep. If you don't get good
Yeah.
sleep, you're not going to do good work.
Exactly.
So and the work could make you not sleep well if it makes you anxious about something, right? Um, so things are connected. I was talking with someone recently because we just had these elections in the U.S. and things have gone wacky, and a lot of people are stressed out about the government right now. And we were talking about bread making earlier.
Hmm.
I had this patient who was super super anxious, and I said, well, like, what's going on? Like, what do you find that you're doing differently now that you're so anxious? And they were saying, well, I generally bake stuff, and I've started baking like 3 times as much stuff every week. And we talked about how, and they were thinking like I'm escaping, which maybe, but they're soothing themselves. They're coping, right, by baking bread, right? So in their mind, they're thinking like, I'm not out marching in the streets or writing a letter to my representative to try to address these problems I see with the government. And somehow baking bread is some sort of lack of responsibility. But I see it as the opposite. Like the bread making keeps them sane, keeps them stable, keeps them intact enough to be able to take that action, to be able to cope, So
Yeah.
I often look out into the, like, what are the domains we think are not related because they are related once we look at them. And sometimes it reveals some interesting things about how they are related.
That's it. Yeah. I think it's important to know exactly who you are, and that's an ongoing journey. Whenever I was in Australia, I worked with a couple of coaches who we did a lot of like deep work trying to find out because I was whenever I went to Australia, I was at a crossroad in my life. I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue doing music because I felt like I just was losing my love for it, losing my passion for it. And I worked with a couple of coaches who really helped kind of dive deep into who I was and what I wanted in from life, essentially.
Mm.
And that was really helpful. That's uncovering that truth of actually what makes you tick is important. So maybe that the woman who does the bread making, that's her way of just expressing or getting that side out of her. For me, it's in the gym, playing guitar, doing jiu-jitsu. That's my kind of not, I don't like calling it escapism, but a way of like getting detaching from work and getting more into my body and out of the logical mind.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I'm imagining if you hadn't done that deeper work,
yeah,
you might still be pursuing ventures, but it wouldn't be informed with your character, your vision.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. A lot of people don't take time to do that either.
right.
That maybe they take a job just because it's a job, a random job just to make money,
Hmm.
and it's not really aligned with what they really care about. They haven't really thought about the impact they want to leave behind. And yeah, I think so many people could benefit from actually doing some deep work and figuring out what it is that they actually want to contribute.
Exactly. Because, I mean, of course, we only see each other, like in the school community, we don't really fully know each other, but it seems to me there's a fair number of people out there who are just like, I want to make 10,000 a month. I want to make 20,000 a month.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
which is okay,
yeah,
but like you say, life is about life, and the money is really just a tool to do life. Like, why do I want the money? I want the food. I want the car. I want the travel. I want the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Um, but I really agree with you that if you don't at some point start reckoning with yourself,
yeah,
like
yeah,
what is my what are my values? What's my character? What are my goals?
yeah,
What am I really up to? How do I
yeah,
work? Those deeper things inform the full trajectory. And yeah, I think that's an important thing for fulfillment. But I also think it's important probably to even just do the ventures, because if you neglect yourself that way, you're gonna flame out. You're more likely to flame out, I think. I think
absolutely.
it's hard to sustain entrepreneurship, partly because you and I and everybody else, we're running with thin margins. And I don't think you and I are unique in saying, like, we're basically doing 7 days a week work. So
Yeah,
if you're gonna have that relationship with your projects,
mm,
you're running on thinner margins. And
yeah,
so how do you do that long enough and well enough to succeed?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one solution is do something you love so it doesn't feel like work. I've always tried to do work which is aligned with what I actually like to do. I know not everyone believes in that. Some people just say, "Oh, do what the market needs and just make loads of money, and then you'll enjoy it because you'll get good at it." But I couldn't force myself to get good at something I really didn't enjoy the craft of. I have to have some kind of interest in that, no matter what that is.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. For me, that started early on because I had a really whacked out childhood in a dysfunctional family and a dysfunctional situation full of dysfunctional people.
Yeah.
And so when I was young, I basically said, I'm going to have fun and damn the consequences, which meant I didn't make a lot of money when I was young. I was a musician and I was a waiter, basically.
Okay.
And you can make a decent amount waiting as long as you're handing
Yeah.
people expensive food. But for me, I basically said I'll go down in flames financially, but I basically demand that I figure out how to be fulfilled and have fun.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
Now that hurt me financially when I was younger, but I think that helps protect me now because, like you, it's like I'm just not going to do something that I don't find fulfilling. I'm not going to do it. I could,
That's it.
but I'm not going to. And so, I want to teach people what I've developed as my skills because I'm deeply enlivened by it. I try to
Yeah.
transform lives and
Mm.
not just put band-aids on problems, but actually teach
Yeah.
people how to be resilient. And that's what I want to do. And if I made no money from it at all, if there was no way to monetize it, I would still do it, and so
Yeah.
um, that's what motivates me too.
What's that story? There's like a story, I think, of it's like a Mexican fisherman where he says like, oh, someone's he's fishing, catching fish, and someone advises him, you could scale this business up, and the guy's like, well, that, and then what? Ultimately, he would still want to be just fishing and then hanging out or playing guitar with his family in the
Hmm.
evenings. So
Hmm.
the whole circle, even if he went around to make billions, sold his company, he's still going to end up doing what he wants to do anyway. So
Right.
why not do that? Why not do that in the first place
Yeah.
and start from what you actually care about? And I think that's why doing the work, the deep work, personal work, is so vital.
Hmm.
Actually, figuring out what your purpose in life is, because it's so easy to get distracted by the, oh, make 10K a month, and you see these people, trading or drop shipping, living in Dubai, and it's easy to have FOMO. The fear of missing out is real. That the glitz of that is like, oh, I want to be driving the Lambo, but you don't really know what their life is like behind that Instagram page, and it's how do you know that they're happy? How do you know that they're actually fulfilled by the work, or how do you even know if it's theirs? It could be rented.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah. The thing about money, they've done research on happiness and money. And if you're making below the living wage for wherever you're living,
yeah,
then when you make more money, you will be happier because if you can't pay
absolutely,
your rent and then you
yeah,
can, that's
yeah,
a big improvement. But the reality is once you go across that threshold, there's not another in my mind, just in the people I've talked to and the research I've looked at, there's not one more step where more money is more happiness. And the other step is, am I making enough money that I can buy back my time?
yeah,
So the one thing is, can I pay all my bills? The other
yeah,
is, do I have enough money that I can back off how much I'm working so that I can buy back
yeah,
time? But the
yeah,
reality is, somebody making 100,000 in the U.S. and they get a raise and they're making 120,000. There's no change in happiness really.
mm,
If you're making 200,000 and then you get a $50,000 bonus, you'll think you're happier, but like 10 seconds after you get that payout, you're the same amount of happiness as you were before you got the bonus. Like more
yeah.
money doesn't really make people more happy as long as you're not poor.
That's it.
And if you're not at the point where you're going to buy back time,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
dollars don't really add any happiness. They just add shiny stuff.
yeah. That's it. That's it. Yeah, and once you kind of have the things that you need, whether it's invest in your business, whatever that is, new computer, new camera, all that stuff. That costs money, of course.
Mhm.
Once you have those things, you kind of have what you need, right? I mean, what next? A bigger house, a newer car, a flasher car, like the allure of that will wear off for sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
I really value travel, so I try and spend as much of my disposable income on trips and experiences versus physical things. I'm not a Rolex watch doesn't motivate me at all. I'd rather take a 6 month trip around South America rather than have something material flash like that.
Mhm. So you've been doing this long enough. Here's a question. Um, if you could send a message back to your younger self
Yeah,
and give yourself, back like 10 years ago, let's say, or something like that.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
what advice would you give your younger self about
yeah.
life or your business ventures?
I would advise myself to go all in on what it is that I wanted to do, but on what I was really passionate about. Because I treated I always had a plan B growing up because I was really hesitant, and I was told by people close to me that it's risky. Entrepreneurship is risky, or pursuing music is risky. You need to have a backup plan. So that's why I went to college. But I went and studied graphic design, which I'm grateful for. I definitely learned some stuff, but ultimately it took energy and time away from the thing I actually really wanted to do. And knowing what I know now, it's possible to monetize what most things, like anything that you really feel called for, and you believe in. It's possible to really make it in this world. And I would have just told myself, just believe in yourself, believe in your vision. Don't spread your eggs too thin. Don't have multiple projects. Just focus and just go all in on what it is you want to do. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Well, Sam, I appreciate you joining me today to chat about what you're up to and have been up to and
Yeah.
thinking about life and business.
Yeah.
I will put your link to your Soundcraft Academy down below in the description of the video too. So if folks want to check out what you're up to there, they can easily jump over and check out your school community.
Thank you. That's awesome. Cheers, John.
Thanks.
It's been fun. I've really enjoyed this chat.
Yeah, thanks for joining me.
Cheers, John. Take care.